I'm a 25-year-old woman, and I share an apartment with my boyfriend, who's 26. We've been in this place for almost a year. He has a job where his hours change a lot. On the day I'm going to tell you about, he had to be at work from a little after noon until a little before 10 at night. I don't work because I have a serious problem with my kidneys. I'm waiting to get a new kidney. So I'm home all day. I keep busy by cooking, cleaning, and looking after our dogs. This scary thing happened just last week, so I remember it all very well. My boyfriend had just left for work, and I decided to lie down for a bit. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was an alert from the camera at our front door. It said there was someone moving out there. I grabbed my phone to see who it was, and I saw a guy standing there. He was trying to open our door. Just then, one of our dogs started barking super loud, and the guy got scared. He ran off to the dirt area behind our backyard. I quickly called my boyfriend to tell him. He said I should call the person who takes care of our apartment building. They could come by in their little golf cart to check if the guy was still around. I agreed, but wanted to make sure the front door was locked tight first. We have a gun for safety, so I took that with me. I had a strong feeling that I needed to be extra careful. I went up to the door with my phone in my other hand. As I walked over, I was watching the live video from the camera to make sure everything was okay. But when I got close to the door, I heard a weird beeping noise. Then, there was a sound like someone using a power drill at my door. Next to the door, we have a small window. I took a quick look through it, and guess what? The same guy from the camera was right there. He was up to something with my camera, and now I couldn't see the live video anymore. All right, so there I was, alone at home as usual, when I got this buzzing alert from our doorbell camera. It said there was a movement at the front door. I grabbed my phone quick to see what was up. What I saw was a guy right there, trying to wiggle the doorknob, but then my dog went nuts barking, and it must have scared the guy because he took off running behind my place. I didn't waste any time. I called my boyfriend to tell him, and he said I should ring up the folks who run our apartment to have someone scoot over on one of those little carts and check things out. I was about to do just that, but something told me to give the front door a once-over myself before calling. Plus, we keep a gun for safety, so I grabbed that too. I had this gut feeling, you know? So, there I am, gun in one hand and my phone in the other, checking the live camera feed as I'm heading to the door. It looked all clear, but just as I got to the door, this beeping noise and what sounded like a drill started up. That's when I knew someone was messing with my door for real. There's this little window by the door, and I took a quick peek. The same guy was out there. He'd done something to mess up my camera, so it wasn't showing me what's happening live anymore. I didn't hesitate. I dialed 911 and had the phone pressed to my cheek, locking the door with my free hand and my gun ready in the other. While the phone was ringing, I shouted out, telling the guy I was armed and ready to use it if he busted in. He must have thought I was just talking big because he kept on trying to break in. The second the 911 operator picked up, I spit out my address and told him some guy was trying to break into my place. I described him as best as I could. That must have spooked him, because he quit trying to get in and everything went silent. The operator told me the cops were already in my apartment complex, and soon enough, a police officer was knocking at my door. The cops looked everywhere but couldn't find the guy at all. Now we're thinking he might be living somewhere here in the complex, because it's all fenced off and there are only two ways to get out. One is right by the main office, which has cameras, and the other is near where I live. The cops think someone's been keeping an eye on me, knowing I'm home by myself a lot, and they figured this guy knew what he was up to because he had this gizmo that shut down my cameras. He had a backpack too, which probably had all his break-in tools and who knows what else. It freaks me out, thinking if I hadn't gone to check the door or had my phone with me, what could have happened if he got in? We've got just a couple of months left on our lease, and we can't wait to move out. I used to feel safe here, but not anymore. I'm jumpy all the time, getting scared over every little sound, and I can't even take my dogs out without worrying he might come back to try again. Listen, always go with your gut. It really could save your life one day. Okay, I'm a 33-year-old lady. Back when I was about 25 years old, I shared a house with a guy everyone called Justin. We lived together in a tiny town nestled in the Shenandoah Mountains in Virginia. My bedroom was on the ground floor of the house, and lucky for me, there was a bathroom right next to it that I decided was mine. Justin had his own space and a bathroom too, but his was all the way upstairs. The house was pretty nice, having been fixed up and all, but there was this one weird thing about it that I thought was a big mistake. In the bathroom I used, right inside the shower, there was this window. It was kind of small, maybe about 2 feet tall and a foot wide. When you took a shower and faced where the water came out, this window was to your right. It started just where your backside is and went up a bit over my shoulders. So, you can probably picture what it was like. Clearly, it was a bit spooky because anyone outside could just look at the side of the house and see right into the shower. If you were in there without any clothes on, they'd get quite the show. I tried to fix it by sticking on this frosty glass film, hoping it would make it hard for anyone to see anything. All they'd see if they peeped in would be kind of like shadows, but even with that, taking showers when it was dark out always gave me the heebie-jeebies. I'd get the creeps thinking about someone out there being able to see my shadowy figure in the shower. Then, after the new year started, we had this huge snowstorm, which meant we were stuck at home all day since we couldn't get to work. Justin wasn't home. He had gone over to his girlfriend's place. I had the place to myself, so I spent most of the day cozied up in bed with Netflix, and at some point, I dozed off. When my eyes popped open, it was pitch black outside. I remembered I had to wash up for work tomorrow. I didn't forget my bathroom's on the ground level right by my room. Even though night showers were my least favorite, I couldn't skip it, so I stepped into the shower and let the water run. I hadn't been in there long, just about 5 minutes, when there was this really loud smack right on the shower window. It sounded exactly like a hand hitting the glass. I felt my heart drop right down to my stomach, and I just couldn't move. Then it happened again. Another smack, really hard. I shuffled back to the far end of the tub, out of sight from the window, and just stood there listening with the shower still going. It sounded just like someone was trying to lift up the window with both hands. Quickly, I wrapped a towel around me and stepped out of the shower, leaving the water on. Standing in the bathroom, I was trying to figure out what to do next. Looking back on it, I can't fathom why I didn't think to bolt out of there or grab my phone to call for help right away. It was almost like I couldn't wrap my head around the idea that someone would actually be right outside, hitting the window and then trying to shove it open. Then I heard what seemed like another go at pushing the window up, followed by a few heavy thumps on the wall towards the back of the house. That's when I finally snapped out of it, grabbed my phone and dialed Justin's number. I spilled out what had just happened, half thinking it was some kind of bad joke he was pulling. But he said no way. He was still at his girlfriend's place, and he proved it by showing me around on FaceTime. He told me straight, call the cops. So, I hung up with him and called the cops, my voice shaking as I told them I thought someone was trying to break into my house, and I was there all by myself. They said they'd send someone over quick. Now, remember how I said it was snowing? Well, when the police got there, one of them stayed with me while the other two went to look around outside. They came back and told me they didn't find anybody, but what really got to me was that there weren't any footprints in the snow around the house or in the backyard. They looked just as puzzled as I felt, but I was sure about what I heard. The thought that there were no tracks out there in the snow, but someone was still banging on my window. That thought just won't leave me alone. I still have no clue about who or what it was smacking the window that snowy night, and that's something that really scares me. A few years back, in the month when spring turns to summer, I went through something so odd and scary, I still get the chills thinking about it. So, it was a regular morning and I was all by myself, getting things ready for my college class. I decided to open my curtains to let in some sunlight. That's when I saw a guy, looked about 30-something, just walking around outside my house. He had on a baseball hat and seemed to think he owned the place the way he strutted around. My house is on a hill, and from my yard, you can see all the way over this big 5-acre space we have. Where I live, it's the Pacific Northwest, and trust me, it's usually super nice to look at. Now, I was scratching my head, thinking perhaps this was someone my mom got to help with fixing up our place, just standing there enjoying the view. I was starting to feel uneasy, though, because the guy then went out of my sight to the side of my house. I made my way to the second floor to get a better look, and sure enough, there he was in my driveway, acting all nosy, looking at this and that, as if he was checking out the house. He hadn't spotted me yet. I got on the phone with my dad, asking him if we were expecting any workers that day, and he was clueless. He said he'd check with my mom and then get back to me. While I waited for his call, I noticed the guy's car. It was a plain white Honda, no number plates or anything, and it was just sitting there near my front door. This stranger was still milling around, and that's when I remembered, hey, we've got a security system, so I turned it on. This way, if he tried to sneak in, boom, the cops would get called straight away. You'd think if this guy was legit, he would have rang the bell or knocked on the door, right? But nope, nothing. My phone rang, and it was my dad. He told me clear as day, "Nope, your mom and I didn't ask anyone to come over. You need to ring up the local police now." So I went down after double-checking all the locks on the doors and windows upstairs and dialed up the police in my town. When I got through to someone, a lady, I spilled out the whole story. But get this, she tells me she's not going to send a cop over. Instead, she hands me another number to call, the emergency line, and tells me to explain everything all over again to them. I did what the lady told me to do. I called the number she handed me, only to be greeted by a robot on the phone saying, "Thanks a bunch for calling our town's extra helpline. No one can chat with you right now. If you're in real trouble, hang up and dial 911. By now, I was getting pretty mad because it had been a whole 15 minutes and this guy was still poking around my place, and I'm there by myself. To the lady at the police station, this wasn't a big deal, I guess. So I hung up and dialed 911 without thinking twice. The person at 911 started asking me all sorts of things about what the guy looked like before they would even tell the police to come over. It felt all wrong. Like I'm a young lady all alone with some random man outside and they weren't rushing or anything. I asked the lady on the phone if she could stay on the call with me after she finally, after what felt like ages, told the police to come over to me. She said okay, and I went upstairs again to keep an eye on the strange man. And there he was, sitting in his car without plates, blasting a loud man's voice from inside. Could have been a loud talk show or a phone call on speaker. Then, suddenly, I hear that sound you get when someone hangs up on you. And bam, the lady from 911 was gone. Just as I'm trying to figure out what's happening, my phone rings with a number I don't know. Thinking it's the 911 lady, I answer quick. But no, instead there's this super creepy, heavy breathing. Who was it? I had no clue, but it scared the daylights out of me. I hung up fast and called 911 again. By this time I was freaking out, but the new person I spoke to already knew what was going on without me saying much. She told me, "The police are on their way." It had been 20 minutes by then. The man was still there, in his car, and the police weren't. And remember, my town isn't big, so there's no reason for them to take forever. Just as the guy starts to leave my driveway, the police arrive. They talk to him for a bit. Then one of the officers comes up to my door and hands me a really dodgy-looking paper that says it's from a landscaping business. "He was just a landscaper," the officer says. "He told us he had an appointment." For a second, I felt both relieved and annoyed. Relieved it was someone my mom got to work for us, and annoyed at the mix-up. But then I called my mom and told her what the cop said. She was like, No way, we never got a landscaper. We don't need one. And there it was. The guy wasn't who he said he was.